Becky Hammond-Stetter at the Crawford County Public Library. Today is May 17th, 2003. I am with Edith Key, who is going to be talking about her uncle, John Carl Harper. Please tell me your full name.
Edith Harper Key.
And please tell me the veteran's full name.
John Carl Harper.
And the date of his death?
November 1985.
Which branch of service did he serve in?
The Army Air Corps.
And what war was that?
World War II.
Do you have the dates?
He was inducted 2nd of March 1942 and separated the 26th of September 1945.
What was his rank?
Corporal.
And where did he serve?
The Mediterranean Theater of Operations.
Edith has brought in a handwritten document written by Carl. She's going to read for us.
Along with several others from Crawford County on March 2nd, 1942, I became Private John C. Harper at Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indiana. We were not there very long until I was placed in the Air Corps, later called the Air Force. Some of us were sent to Keesler Field, Mississippi for about 4 weeks basic drill. From there I went to armament school at Lowry Field, Colorado. We were there about 5 or 6 weeks, and then we went to Hill Field, Ogden, Utah, and from there to Wendover, Utah. Then back to Hill Field, and when we left Hill Field, the latter part of August 1942, we were sent to Fort Dix, New Jersey. September the 5th, we were on the Queen Mary headed for England. I was in England about 3 months, and then we went to North Africa. We landed in Oran, and that is spelled O-R-A-N, and stayed a short time. Then we went by train to Algiers. The invasion forces were about 1 month ahead of us. I was in the headquarters squadron of the Mediterranean Theater of Operations. After being in Algiers about 14 months, we went by airplane across the Mediterranean to Naples, Italy. We did quite a bit of guard duty in Africa. Then I found a job in a transit officer's mess hall. In Italy, I cooked for about a year. It was while stationed at Naples, Italy, that we took advantage of the opportunity of going to Rome, as well as Cairo, Egypt, and Alexandria. On this trip from Cairo, we went to Palestine in September 1944. In March 1945, we came back to the U.S. We were sent to Santa Ana, California for a short time, then to Bear Field, Fort Wayne, Indiana, where we cooked till September the 26th, 1945, and received our discharge. My uncle was a very religious man, and he had, at his death, he had read the Bible through 60 times. And it's my opinion that is why that it was natural for him to change from first person pronoun to third.
Edith also brought in a poem written by Carl that she's going to read.
It is entitled My First Voyage. 11 months ago today, several of us got on ship. Pretty soon we were heading east, and it wasn't just a pleasure trip. However, I had some fun on the voyage part of the time. I'll mention it later on if I can somehow make it rhyme. I think I shall never forget when the gangplank was pulled in. I was glad I could put my trust in the God who saved me from sin. Our vessel was a huge sea monster compared to most of her contemporaries. She has made a lot of voyages in spite of all her adversaries. The great boat started to move while the sun was shining bright, and after a few hours had passed, not a bit of land was in sight. The road we traveled on for several days was made of salt and H2O. None of the boys that I talked to knew exactly where we would go. We rode on the same ocean that Columbus did in 1492, but our ship was faster than the Nina, and we had a much larger crew. The number of men on board and just how many days we bounced is a military secret, I suppose, and cannot be widely announced. We sure made good time, even if we did do a lot of weaving. Sometimes we laughed a little at the way some of the boys were heaving. It wasn't at all unusual to start walking down a hall and meet a soldier coming toward you very straight and tall. He was probably vertical with the earth, but he sure wasn't with the floor. He would lean one way, then the other, before he reached the door. His reeling wasn't caused by liquor. We were riding powerful waves, and, under strain, it surprised me a little the way a ship behaved. Somewhere along the way, we got word by radio that we were sunk 500 miles out, but we were glad it was not so. The voyage was completed well enough, and it wasn't just a happen so, for I believe God is still watching all the affairs of men here below. There's another trip I want to take, either by sea or air, and I believe we shall make it safely, trusting God to again answer prayer. I want to go back to the U.S. and to Indiana, my home state, but we probably can't go for a while, so let us do our duty as we wait. This poem was published in our local paper along with this item, and I quote, Private John Carl Harper was called March the 2nd, 1942 to Fort Harrison. He was in several states taking training in the Army Air Corps. Then in September, he was sent to England from New Jersey. He was in England 77 days. In December, he was sent to North Africa, where he is now stationed. He sends this poem home. He wrote several other poems, such as A Moonlight Meditation while in Italy, December the 1st, 1944, and It Reminds Me, Italy, March the 21st, 1944. I like this one too because it shows his dry sense of humor, and it is entitled A Disappointment. It's hard to tell what to believe. There are so many rumors around. I even read something on the bulletin board that wasn't very dependable and sound. My name, with several others, was listed as soldiers who got a promotion. But I suppose where the rub came, all the officers weren't in the same notion. So for something like 11 days, some of us really believed that we had a corporal's rating, but we found we had been deceived. When I read the order for promotion, I appreciated it, of course, but I wasn't married to the rating, so I didn't need a divorce. I put CPL on some letter, but I wasn't overly enthused. Now I'm writing PFC without feeling miserably abused. When victory is finally won, I'll thank my God a million if I can return with good health and be a U.S. civilian. He also sang in an Air Corps choir for a church service held at Christmas time while in Italy. And to me it is interesting that in his poem, My First Voyage, he does not say the Atlantic Ocean, but gives a clue using Columbus's voyage. There was a lot of censorship during World War II. His discharge reads corporal, so his promotion came through at a later date.
Was he able to stay in touch with the family while he was away?
Yes, but the majority of his letters were written in poetry. It seems as though it was natural for him to express himself that way. And my aunt even received after his death a letter from a lady who her father had saved. One of the little, I think they were called WII mail. And it was a picture of a poem that he had written to his friend from English. And I've often wondered if the enemy had gotten a hold of those letters, if they would have thought that he was some kind of a spy writing in code. I don't think it was the normal thing to express yourself in poetry.
And You told me that you had even got some mail from him when you were young.
Yes, I did. I was in the second grade, and he would send cards, postcards, and when he had the opportunity. And I've forgotten what I wrote to him. I wish I knew. He probably had saved them, but their house burned in 1951, and a lot of his mementos were destroyed.
Did he talk about going on leave while he was gone, or was he allowed to?
That is the trip he's referring to when he went to Palestine, which became known, a part of it is back in Israel, and it's called the Holy Land. And after he came home from the service, he went around to different churches and talked about his trip to the Holy Land.
Now, what was his career after the war?
He farmed, and he also he retired from Belknap's in Louisville.
Did he belong to any veterans organizations?
No.
Is there anything you would like to add that you remembered about wartime, even though you were young?
One of my clearest memories is the fact that we were practiced evacuating the Marengo High School and elementary school. We would be marched in it was double file down to the Marengo Quarry, and that was supposed to be our place of safety in case of attack. I also do remember that during graduation ceremony, they had to be held at the Marengo Rialto Theater because that was the biggest building we had in the town, and all of the windows in that theater were blacked out for the commencement. I remember on the building itself there was a roll of honor, and it had it was white, and the servicemen were their names were printed in black, and those that had been killed in war, they had a gold star beside them. I do remember my neighbor who had the banner in the window, and she had several sons and son-in-laws in the service, and that sticks to my mind. My father he served in the local civil defense. He was not in the military service.
And where did he serve at?
Crawford County in the Marengo area.
And what is your father's name?
William Haynes Harper.
And was that all throughout World War II, or just part of that time?
The best I can remember, it probably took a few months to get it organized, and then I'm certain that it lasted during the war. Of course, we've had civil defense in Crawford County since then, but I don't remember my father serving.
Do you remember any special things your mother did, like knit sweaters or that kind of thing for the service people?
No, but my mother operated a cream station in the town of Marengo. It started when I was in the second grade, and I can do remember the fact that you could not buy first grade butter in the stores. It was evidently sent somewhere else. And Dad's cousins who lived in California, I remember, because my dad also drove the truck that picked up the cream at different locations and ended up at the Sugar Creek Creamery in Evansville, Indiana, and he could buy second grade butter, and we would send it to our cousins in California. And of course I remember that a lot of people didn't have money, but we didn't know that we didn't have money because there was nothing to buy anyway because of the rationing. And I remember that I had saved up. Mother gave us a little, maybe 10, 15 cents a week to help her wash cream buckets. and I'd saved some money, and I wanted a pair of shoes. And then in those days, girls wore high-top white shoes. Boys, they were brown. And we went to the store. We had our shoe stamp that they did not have any white shoes. And I insisted that I would be satisfied with those brown ones. My dad kept saying, "Now, Edie, you know you don't want those brown shoes." But I got them, and I had to wear them. And I don't, I have a picture with that, and I wish I had waited and maybe gotten some white ones at some time, because I was embarrassed before it was all over.
And do you remember the days when your uncle first came home from the service?
Yes. It was, of course, he did come home and visit us with his uniform and all. But I remember the day he left home. It sticks in my mind because my dad went to get him and to bring him to English, where he would get on the bus or the train. I thought it was the bus. And my grandfather, he always wore a big long beard, and he was in his 30s when he got married. So he was probably in his 50s at that time. And he stood behind the stove and cried and cried and cried. And my grandmother sat in the rocking chair, and she rocked and rocked and rocked. And as I look back over it all, it's just about the way the mothers do. They hold up in times of distress because I was really frightened. And I don't know if she realized that I was frightened, and she tried to make it not as traumatic for me, because I was an emotional child.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't covered?
Just the fact that he was active in the Pilgrim Holiness Church, which became the Wesleyan, and he was a licensed lay preacher, and he did fill in a lot of times for other ministers when they were gone. And I just think that he would be very happy to participate in this program, even though he did not join military organizations. He was very, I won't say proud, but just say that he appreciated the fact that he had been able to serve his country.
We're grateful for his service, and we're grateful for you for sharing these memories with us. Thank you.